The cold left Jake Morrison's body slowly, like ice melting under a warm sun. His fingers moved first, then his toes. The taste in his mouth was bitter and strange. Metal and medicine mixed together on his tongue. His eyes opened to bright white. Light that made him squeeze them shut again. Easy now, human Jake. You are safe. The voice was soft but wrong somehow. Too many sounds in one word. Like two people talking at the same time, Jake tried to sit up. Strong hands pressed him back down. Not human hands. These had too many fingers and felt rough like tree bark. Where am I? Jake's voice came out as a whisper. His throat hurt. You are on the ship Compassionate Dawn. I am Dr. Vexstar. We found you floating in space many cycles ago. Your ship was broken. You were dying. Jake forced his eyes open again. The light was softer now. Face looked down at him. It was not human. Green scales covered skin that looked like leather. Yellow eyes with no white parts stared at him. A mouthful of small, sharp teeth opened and closed as it spoke. What happened to my ship? Jake tried to remember. He was Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. He was on patrol near the outer colonies. Then there was fire and explosions, and someone put him in the sleep pod. Your ship was damaged in battle. We found it drifting near the Kel system. You were the only one alive inside. Jake's heart began to beat faster. How long was I asleep? Dr. Vexstar made a sound like air leaving a balloon. 200 of your Earth years have passed, human Jake. The words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. 200 years. Everyone he knew was dead. His wife Lisa, his daughter Amy, his parents. His friends, all gone. I know this is hard to understand, but you are safe now. We saved you. Jake looked around the room. Everything was smooth and curved. The walls glowed with soft blue light. Machines hummed quietly around his bed. It looked like a hospital, but not like any hospital he had ever seen. Who are you people? We are the Zelhari. We travel the galaxy and help those who need it. We preserve life and culture from species that are dying out. You are very special, human Jake. You are one of the last free humans in the galaxy. Jake tried to sit up again. Time Dr. Vexstar led him. His head spun, but he stayed upright. What do you mean, last free humans? Dr. Vexstar's yellow eyes looked sad. I am sorry to tell you this. Your people lost the war. Earth fell to the Korthok Empire 50 years after we found you. The humans who survived were taken as workers. They serve the Korthok now on mining worlds and factory planets. The room started to spin. Jake gripped the edges of the bed. All of them? Most of them? The Korthok keep them alive because humans are good workers, but they are not free. Cannot leave the worlds where they work. Cannot choose their own lives. Jake stared at the wall. His people were slaves. While he slept in his cold pod, humanity had fallen. Everything they fought for was gone. But you are safe here, Doctor. Vexstar continued. We have saved pieces of your culture. Art and music and books. Stories and poems. We keep them safe so future generations can learn about humanity. You have human things? Yes. Come. When you are stronger, I will show you. Jake spent the next few days learning to walk again. His muscles were weak from the long sleep. Dr. Vexstar gave him medicines that made him feel better. Other Zelhari came to see him. They all had the same green scales and yellow eyes. They spoke in the same strange way, with too many sounds. They were kind to him. They brought him food that tasted almost like Earth food. They showed him how to use their machines. They answered his questions about their ship and their people. Dr. Vexstar kept his promise. He took Jake to a large room filled with things from Earth. Paintings hung on the walls. Books sat on shelves. Music played from hidden speakers. Saw a guitar in a glass case, a baseball and glove, a wedding dress. Things that made his chest hurt to look at. We saved what we could from human ships we found. We trade with collectors who have human items. We want to keep your culture alive, even if your people cannot be free. Jake picked up a photo from a table. It showed a family at a beach. Man and woman with 2 children building a sandcastle. They were smiling and happy. Jake did not know them, but they looked like people he might have known. "Why don't you help them?" Jake asked. "If you can travel through space and have all this technology, why don't you free the humans from the Korthok?" Dr. Vexstar made the air sound again. "We do not interfere in the affairs of other species. Preserve and protect culture. But we do not fight wars. It is not our way. But they're slaves." "Yes, and that is sad. But if we fought every war in the galaxy, we would become warriors ourselves. We choose to save what we can and let others make their own choices." Jake nodded, but something cold settled in his stomach. The Zelhari could help but chose not to. They would rather collect human things than free human people. That night, Jake lay in his bed staring at the ceiling. The ship was quiet, except for the hum of machines. Dr. Vexstar had given him clothes that almost fit. In a room with a soft bed and a window that showed the stars outside, he should be grateful. The Zelhari saved his life. They gave him a home when he had nowhere to go. They preserved pieces of Earth so humanity would not be forgotten. But Jake was not grateful. He was angry. His wife Lisa had sent him a message before he went into the sleep pod. She told him to come home safe. She said Amy missed him and wanted him to read her bedtime stories. She said she loved him and would wait for him. Now she was dust. Amy was dust. Everyone he loved was gone. And the people who could have saved them chose to collect their paintings instead. Jake closed his eyes and tried to sleep. But behind his eyelids he saw Lisa's face. He heard Amy laughing. He remembered the taste of coffee in the morning and the smell of rain on Earth. The Zelhari thought they had saved him. They thought he would be happy to live in their museum and look at pictures of his dead world. They were wrong. Jake was not a museum piece. He was a soldier, and soldiers had jobs to do. He opened his eyes and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans worked in chains. They dug in mines and built things for their masters. They had children who would never know freedom. They remembered Earth only in whispers. The Zelhari wanted to preserve human culture. Jake would give them something to preserve. He would give them war. But first he needed to learn. He needed to know about this ship and these people. He needed to understand the Korthok and how they controlled human worlds. He needed to find out how many humans were still alive and where they were kept. Jake smiled in the dark. It was not a nice smile. Dr. Vexstar had told him he was special. One of the last free humans in the galaxy. Soon the doctor would learn just how special free humans could be. Jake closed his eyes and began to plan. The Zelhari thought they had rescued him. They had no idea what they had really awakened. Jake woke up early every day, told Dr. Vexstar that he had trouble sleeping. The doctor gave him medicine and spoke about trauma and adjustment. Jake took the pills but did not swallow them, hid them under his tongue and spit them out later. He needed his mind clear and sharp. Jake spent his days walking around the ship. He told the Zelhari he was exploring and learning about their culture. They were happy to show him everything. They were proud of their ship and their mission. The Compassion at Dawn was huge. It had 12 levels and hundreds of rooms. Jake counted the crew members. There were 43 Zelhari on the ship. He learned their names and their jobs. Watched them work and eat and sleep. Dr. Vexstar was the chief medical officer. Captain Morden ran the ship. Engineer Kellex fixed the machines. Security Chief Zareth carried weapons, but they were small and looked like they were made to stun, not kill. Jake memorized the layout of each level. He found the weapons storage room on level 5, the communication center on level 3, engine room at the bottom of the ship, the escape pods near the docking bay. He was always polite and friendly. He smiled and thanked them for their kindness. He asked questions about their culture and their history. He acted like a man who was grateful to be alive and wanted to learn, but inside, Jake was always counting guards, counting weapons, counting the seconds between patrol rounds. On his 5th day, Dr. Vexstar took him to meet the other survivors. They lived on level 7, in rooms that looked like apartments. Each room had furniture and decorations from their home worlds. Have saved members from 17 different species, Dr. Vexstar explained as they walked down a long hallway. Each one was rescued just before their people were lost. Jake met a tall blue woman named Thyra. Her people had been destroyed by a plague. She had been on the ship for 30 years. She grew plants in her room and made beautiful cloth with her 6 arms. There was a small furry creature named Pip, whose world had been eaten by their own son. He had been rescued as a baby and was now full-grown. He painted pictures of his dead world from stories the Zelhari had told him. An old man named Gorith came from a world that had destroyed itself in war. He was the last of his kind, spent his days writing down the history of his people so it would not be forgotten. And here, Dr. Vextar said, stopping at a door painted with earth colors, is someone special for you to meet. The door opened, and Jake saw a young woman with brown hair and green eyes. She was human. She wore Zelhari clothes, but her face was definitely human. Jake, this is Kira Stone. She was rescued when she was 7 years old. She has been with us. For 15 years, Kira smiled and stepped forward. It's so good to meet another human. I was starting to think I was the only one left. Jake stared at her. She spoke with a strange accent that mixed human words with Zelhari sounds. But she was human. She was alive. How were you rescued? Jake asked. My parents were scientists on a research station. The Korthok attacked and killed everyone. I hid in the storage room. Zelhari found me 3 days later. I was almost dead from hunger and fear. Kira invited Jake into her room. It was decorated with human things mixed with Zelhari art. Photos of Earth sat next to alien sculptures. Books in English shared shelves with Zelhari crystals that played music. I don't remember much about Earth, Kira said as she made tea. I was so young when I left. But the Zelhari have taught me about human culture. They have books and movies and music. They want me to keep the memories alive. Don't you want to go back? To find other humans? Kira looked confused. Go back where? Earth is gone. The humans who are left are slaves. Here I am safe and free. The Zelhari take care of me. They love me like family. Jake drank his tea and listened to Kira talk about her life on the ship. She worked in the Cultural Preservation Department. She helped catalog human artifacts and wrote reports about human customs. She was happy. Jake smiled and nodded and asked questions, but inside he felt sick. Kira was not. Free, she was a pet, living doll that the Zelhari dressed up and played with. She did not even know she was in a cage. Over the next few weeks, Jake spent time with all the survivors. They were all the same, happy to be alive, grateful to their rescuers, content to live as the last examples of their dead peoples. None of them wanted to fight. None of them wanted revenge. They just wanted to be safe and comfortable and remember the old days. Jake learned that the Zelhari had been doing this for hundreds of years. Whenever they found a species that was about to go extinct, they would save a few individuals. They would give them good homes and ask them to preserve their culture. The Zelhari had museums on 12 different worlds. Thousands of visitors came to see the artifacts and meet the survivors. They were famous across the galaxy for their work in cultural preservation. We are the guardians of memory, Captain Morden told Jake during one of their talks. When a species dies, their knowledge dies with them. We make sure that does not happen. But why don't you stop them from dying in the first place? Jake asked. Captain Morden made the air sound that all Zelhari made when they were sad. Cannot interfere with the natural order. Species rise and fall. Empires grow and collapse. If we tried to save everyone, we would become conquerors ourselves. We choose to preserve rather than control. Jake nodded and smiled. That makes sense. You are very wise. But Jake was learning other things too, things the Zelhari did not mean. To teach him, he learned that their weapons were designed to capture, not kill. The Zelhari had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their security was meant to keep people safe, not to stop enemies. He learned that the ship's communication, the system could reach anywhere in the galaxy. The Zelhari talked to many different species. They traded with merchants and diplomats. They had friends and contacts everywhere. He learned that the Zelhari were rich and powerful. They had technology that could travel faster than light. had medicine that could cure any disease. They had weapons that could destroy planets, but they chose not to use any of it to help. Jake also learned about the Korthok Empire. Kira had access to the ship's information systems. She showed him maps of Korthok space and reports about their slave worlds. There are over 200 worlds where humans work, Kira explained as they looked at the star charts.
Most of them
Are mining planets or factory worlds? Now the humans there are treated well as long as they work hard. Treated well? Jake asked. They get food and shelter and medical care. Their children go to schools. They have families and communities. It's not freedom, but it's not torture either. Jake stared at the star map. 200 worlds, millions of humans, all of them working for their masters, all of them living in chains. The Korthok are not evil, Kira continued. They just see humans as useful, like we might see horses or cattle. They need workers, and humans are good workers. Don't you want to free them? Kira looked at him with surprise. How? There are billions of Korthok and only a few million humans. Even if we could fight them, we would lose. At least this way, humans stay alive. Jake nodded and agreed. He let Kira think he understood. But inside, his anger grew stronger every day. The Zelhari had the power to free humanity. They could destroy the Korthok Empire if they wanted to. But they chose to let millions of people live as slaves so they could keep a few humans as pets in their museums. Jake began to have nightmares. He would wake up screaming and covered in sweat. Dr. Vextar gave him stronger medicine and talked about post-traumatic stress. It is normal for rescued individuals to have these reactions, the doctor explained. You've lost everything you knew. Your mind is trying to process the trauma. Jake agreed and took the pills and acted like a broken man who needed help. He spent hours in the medical bay talking about his feelings. He cried when he spoke about his dead wife and daughter. But at night, alone in his room, Jake planned. He studied the ship's systems. He memorized guard rotations, identified weak points in their security, learned which Zelhari were most dangerous and which ones would be easy to eliminate. Jake also began to exercise. He told Dr. Vextar that physical activity helped with his depression. The doctor was happy to let him use the ship's gym. Jake built his strength back up. He practiced fighting techniques he had learned in the military. 3 months after waking up, Jake was ready. His body was strong. His mind was clear. He knew everything he needed to know about the ship and its crew. The Zelhari thought he was healing. They thought he was learning to accept his new life. They thought he was becoming like the other survivors. They were wrong. Jake was not healing. He was preparing for war. And soon, the Zelhari would learn what happened when you made a human soldier angry. Jake had been on the ship for 4 months when Captain Morden made the announcement. They were going to have special visitors. Important guests from the Korthok Empire were coming to discuss new agreements. This is a great honor, Captain Morden told the crew during the morning meeting. General Throcktor himself will be visiting us. He's one of the most powerful Korthok leaders. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Korthok General was coming to their ship. The same species that had enslaved humanity was going to visit the people who claimed to preserve human culture. Why are they coming here? Jake asked Dr. Vextar later that day. We have business relationships with many species, the doctor explained. The Korthok help us find artifacts and survivors from worlds they have conquered. In return, we share our knowledge of preservation techniques. Jake's hands began to shake. He clenched them into fists to hide his anger. They help you find survivors? Yes. Sometimes when they take over a world, there are individuals hiding or trapped. The Korthok let us know when they find them. We rescue them and give them new homes. And what do you give the Korthok? Dr. Vextar looked uncomfortable. We share our medical technology, our preservation methods, things that help them take better care of their workers. Jake felt sick. The Zelhari were not just allowing slavery to continue. They were helping the Korthok do it better. 3 days later, Black Ship docked with the compassionate Dawn. Jake watched from the observation deck as Korthok soldiers came aboard. They were tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. Faces had no nose, just slits for breathing. Their eyes were small and black dot. General Throckter was bigger than the others. He wore armor covered in spikes and carried weapons on all four arms. When he walked, his boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. Captain Morden held a formal dinner for the visitors. The survivors were invited too. To show the Korthok how well they were treated, Jake sat at a table with Kira and some of the other survivors. He watched General Throckter eat with his strange mouth. The general's translator box turned his words into something Jake could understand. "Your preservation work is impressive," General Throckter said to Captain Morden. "The specimens you keep are healthy and productive. You take good care of them," Captain Morden replied. "They are living treasures, indeed. We have found more survivors on the mining world of Kepler-44 to be humans. A family was hiding in the old tunnels. They have been there for 30 years. Jake's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Humans were still hiding from the Korthok, still fighting to stay free. "How many?" Dr. Vextar asked. "A man, a woman, and 2 children. The adults are too old to be useful workers, but the children could be trained." "We would be happy to take them," Captain Morden said. "Humans are particularly interesting to preserve. They have such rich cultures." General Throckter made a sound like grinding metal. Jake realized it was laughter. "Yes. They are stubborn. Even after all these years, some still refuse to accept their place. But most have learned to be good workers." "How many humans do you have now?" asked Engineer Kellex. "Approximately 3.7 million across all our worlds. They are excellent miners and factory workers. Very strong and clever with their hands. Their children learn quickly." Jake's vision started to blur. 3.7 million humans. All of them slaves. All of them working for the creatures that destroyed Earth. "We have had some trouble with resistance groups," General Throckter continued. "Small bands of humans who try to sabotage our operations. But we have developed new methods to deal with them." "What kind of methods?" Dr. Vextar asked. "Containment facilities, better surveillance. And your medical techniques have helped us keep them healthy while they work longer hours." Jake's chair made a loud scraping sound as he stood up suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "Excuse me," he said. "I don't feel well." He left the dining room and walked quickly to his quarters. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. He locked his door and sat on his bed with his head in his hands. The Zelhari were not just allowing slavery. They were helping improve it. Their medical knowledge was being used to make humans work harder and longer. Their preservation techniques were helping the Korthok keep slaves. It's healthy enough to be useful, and they called it cultural preservation. Jake heard a soft knock on his door. "Jake, are you okay?" It was Kira's voice. He opened the door. Kira stood in the hallway looking worried. He looked upset at dinner. "I'm fine, just tired." Kira pushed past him into the room. "No, you're not. I know that look. I've seen it before. When new survivors arrive, you're angry." Jake closed the door and sat down heavily. "Aren't you?" "Angry about what?" "About what they're doing, the Zelhari and the Korthok. They're working together." Kira sat down next to him. "Of course they work together. The Zelhari work with lots of species. That's how they get resources and information." "Kira, they're helping the Korthok keep humans as slaves. The medical technology they share is being used to make our people work harder. Our people are already slaves," Kira said quietly. "At least this way, they're healthy slaves. At least they stay alive." Jake stared at her. "You really believe that?" "What choice do we have? There are billions of Korthok and only a few million humans. We can't fight them. We can't win. The best we can do is survive. The Zelhari could fight them. They have the technology. They have the weapons. And then what? The Zelhari become conquerors? They become the new empire? At least now they preserve cultures instead of destroying them?" Jake stood up and began pacing. "They're not preserving human culture. They're preserving human slavery." Kira watched him walk back and forth. "Jake, I know this is hard. I know you're hurting. But getting angry won't change anything. You have to accept what we can't control." "No." Jake stopped pacing and looked at her. "No, we don't." The next morning, Jake went to see Dr. Vextar. He told the doctor he was having trouble sleeping again. The nightmares were getting worse. I keep thinking about my family, Jake said. My wife Lisa and my daughter Amy. I never got to say goodbye. Dr. Vextar's yellow eyes looked sad. I am sorry. Losing family is the hardest part of survival. Hey, do you have any records of them? Any information about what happened to them? The doctor was quiet for a long moment. We do have some records from the evacuation of Earth, but I am not sure it would be helpful for you to see them. Please, I need to know. Dr. Vextar went to his computer and typed for several minutes. I found them. Lisa Carter Morrison and Amy Morrison. They were on evacuation transport ship number 47. What happened to their ship? The doctor looked uncomfortable. It was destroyed by Korthok fighters 3 days after leaving Earth. There were no survivors. Jake felt the world tilt sideways. 3 days? The Korthok were very thorough in their conquest. They destroyed most of the evacuation ships to prevent humans from escaping and forming resistance groups elsewhere. But I was in cryosleep. For weeks before the evacuation started, and why didn't they put Lisa and Amy in cryopods too? Dr. Vextar looked even more uncomfortable. The cryopods were reserved for military personnel. Civilians were evacuated on regular transport ships. His hands began to shake again. You have recordings of this? Some, but Jake, I do not think you should see them. It will only cause you more pain. I want to see them. The doctor hesitated, then turned his screen toward Jake. A video began to play. It showed the inside of a crowded transport ship. Families sat together with small bags of belongings. Children cried. Adults tried to stay calm. Jake saw her immediately. Lisa was sitting near the back of the ship, holding Amy in her lap. His daughter looked scared, but was trying to be brave. Lisa was stroking Amy's hair and whispering to her. Can you turn up the sound? Jake asked. Dr. Vextar adjusted the controls. Lisa's voice came through the speakers. Daddy will meet us at the new colony, she was saying. He's sleeping now, but when he wakes up, we'll all be together again, just like he promised. Amy looked up at her mother. Will Daddy find us? Yes, baby. Daddy always keeps his promises. He'll find us no matter what. The video ended. Jake stared at the blank screen. His wife and daughter had died believing he would save them. They died waiting for him to wake up and find them. There is more, Dr. Vextar said quietly. Lisa recorded a message for you before the ship was destroyed. But Jake, perhaps you should wait until you are stronger. Show me. The screen lit up. Again, Lisa's face appeared, older and more tired than Jake remembered. She was sitting in what looked like a small room on the ship. Jake, if you're watching this, it means we didn't make it to the colony. The Korthok ships found us. They're going to attack soon. Lisa's voice was calm, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. I want you to know that Amy and I love you. Understand why you had to go into cryosleep. We understand you were trying to protect us. Lisa looked away from the camera for a moment. Jake could hear explosions in the background. I need you to promise me something, Jake. Promise me you won't spend your life trying to get revenge. Promise me you'll find a way to be happy. Amy and I are going to be okay. We're going to be together. But you have to keep living. The explosions got louder. Lisa looked back at the camera. I love you, Jake Morrison. I will always love you. Take care of yourself. The screen went black. Jake waited until the middle of the night cycle. The ship was quiet except for the hum of machines and the soft footsteps of security guards on their rounds. He had memorized their pattern. Security Chief Zareth walked past his door every 43 minutes. Jake opened his door slowly and looked down the hallway, empty. He wore dark clothes and soft shoes that made no sound on the metal floor. In his hand he carried a small tool he had taken from the maintenance room. It looked harmless, but could cut through most metals. He moved through the ship like a shadow. For months of walking these halls had taught him every shortcut and hiding place. He avoided the main corridors and used service tunnels instead. His first stop was the communication center on level 3. One guard sat at the control desk half asleep. Jake moved up behind him without making a sound. The guard never knew what hit him. Jake tied the guard up and stuffed cloth in his mouth. Then he went to work on the communication equipment. He did not destroy it completely, that would be noticed too quickly. Steady damaged key components that would take hours to find and fix. Next, Jake went to the weapons storage room on level 5. This was more dangerous. 2 guards stood outside the door, and they were awake. Jake waited in the shadows near a corner until he heard footsteps. Another guard was coming to change shifts. When the new guard turned the corner, Jake grabbed him and covered his mouth. The man struggled, but Jake was stronger. He pressed a nerve point on the guard's neck, and the Zelhari went limp. Jake put on the guard's uniform and walked toward the weapon room. The 2 guards at the door knew him by now. They had seen him walking around the ship for months, I am supposed. To check the inventory, Jake said in his broken Zelhari language. Captain Morden wants a report before the Korthok leave. The guards looked confused, but they opened the door. Jake walked inside and they followed him. When they were both in the small room, Jake moved fast. Zelhari were not fighters. They'd been peaceful for so long that they had forgotten how to fight. Jake knocked them both unconscious in seconds. He looked at the weapons on the shelves. Most were stun guns designed to stop people without killing them. But there were also some plasma rifles and energy blades. Jake took what he could carry and hid the rest where the guards could not find them quickly. Now came the hard part. How to get to the guest quarters where General Throckter was sleeping, but the Korthok had brought their own guards. These would not be easy to fool. Jake used the maintenance tunnels to get close to level 4. He crawled through narrow spaces between the walls until he was directly above the guest quarters. Then he cut a small hole in the ceiling and looked down. 2 Korthok soldiers stood outside the general's room. They were armed with real weapons, not stun guns. Therefore, arms made them dangerous fighters. But they were watching the hallway, not the ceiling. Jake dropped down behind them without making a sound. He had one of the energy blades in his hand. First soldier never had a chance to turn around. The second one started to scream, but Jake cut him down before any sound came out. Jake dragged the bodies into an empty room and took their weapons. Korthok guns were heavy, but powerful. He checked the charge levels. Full power Jatra door was locked with an electronic system. Jake used his cutting tool to remove the control panel and rewired it. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The general was asleep in a bed too small for his large body. His armor was hanging on a stand nearby. His weapons were on a table by the window. Jake walked slowly toward the bed. This was the creature that had helped destroy Earth. This was one of the leaders who kept millions of humans as slaves. General Throckter's eyes opened just as Jake reached the bed. The general started to sit up, but Jake pressed the energy blade to his throat. "Make any sound and you die," Jake whispered. The general's black eyes stared at him. "You are the human from the dining room, yes? What do you want?" "Information." "How many human worlds does the Korthok Empire control?" General Throckter's mouth opened to show sharp teeth. "You think I will tell you military secrets?" Jake pressed the blade closer. A thin line of blue blood appeared on the general's gray skin. "I think you want to live." There are 237 worlds with human populations. Mining colonies mostly, some factory worlds, a few agricultural planets. How many humans total? Perhaps 4 million, maybe more. We do not count them precisely. Where are the resistance groups? The general hesitated. Jake pressed the blade deeper. Kepler 4 for to B has the largest group, perhaps 300 humans hiding in the old mines. There are smaller groups on 15 other worlds. Jake memorized every word. What are the Korthok military codes for communicating with slave worlds? I will not tell you that. Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. Yes, you will. 20 minutes later, Jake had everything he needed. Military codes, planet locations, guard rotations on major slave worlds. The general had tried to stay quiet at first, but Jake knew how to make people talk. "Please," the general gasped. "I have told you everything. Let me live." "Killed my wife and daughter," Jake said quietly. "You turned my people into slaves. You helped the Zelhari pretend they were saving human culture, while they helped you destroy human freedom. I was following orders. It was not personal. It is now." Jake cut the general's throat with one quick motion. Blue blood soaked the bedsheets. The most powerful Korthok leader in this part of the galaxy was dead, but Jake was not finished. He took the general's communication device and his personal weapons. Then he went hunting for the rest of the Korthok soldiers on the ship. The next one was easy to find. He was guarding the docking bay where the Korthok ship was attached. Jake came up behind him and broke his neck before the soldier knew he was. There, the third soldier was more alert. He heard Jake coming and turned around with his weapon ready, but Jake was faster. He rolled to the side and came up firing. The plasma blast burned a hole through the soldier's chest. The alarm started ringing. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Captain Morden's voice came over the ship's speakers. All crew to emergency stations. We have intruders on board. Security. Teams to level 4 immediately. Jake smiled and ran toward the maintenance tunnels. Let them think there were intruders. Let them waste time looking for enemies that did not exist. He climbed through the narrow spaces between decks until he reached level 7 where the other survivors lived. He found Kira's room and knocked on her door. Jake, Kira opened the door, wearing sleeping clothes. Her hair was messy and her eyes were wide with fear. What's happening? Why are the alarms ringing? We need to talk, Jake said. He pushed past her into the room and closed the door. You look different, Kira said. Why are you carrying weapons? Jake set the Korthok guns on her table. Killed General Throckter and his guards. Kira's face went white. What? I killed them. And now, I'm going to kill the rest of the Korthak on this ship. Then I'm going to kill every Zelhari who helped them. Jake, no, you can't do this. The Zelhari saved us. The Zelhari helped the Korthak keep humans as slaves. They gave them medical technology to make our people work harder. They're not our friends, Kira. They are our enemies. Kira backed away from him. You're insane. The grief has broken your mind. Jake pulled out the general's communication device and turned it on. Listen. To this, he played a recording he had made of the general talking about human slave worlds. The general's voice filled the room, describing humans like they were animals, talking about breeding programs and work quotas and punishment techniques. Psst. Know about all of this, Jake said when the recording ended. They have known for years, and they help make it better for the Korthok, not for us. Kira sat down heavily on her bed. I don't understand. Why would they lie to us? Because it's easier to control a few humans in a museum than to fight a war. 2 free millions. They get to feel good about saving culture while the rest of our people suffer. Tears started running down Kira's face. What are we going to do? We are going to fight back. But first, I need to show you something. Jake activated the communication device again. This time, he showed Kira the recordings Dr. Vextar had given him. The evacuation ships. The families dying while calling for help that never came. This is my wife, Lisa, Jake said as the video played, and my daughter, Amy. They died believing I would save them. The Zelhari had this recording for 4 months and never showed it to me. Kira watched the video with tears streaming down her face. When Lisa's final message played, Kira started sobbing. They could have saved them, she whispered. The Zelhari could have saved everyone, yes. But they chose not to. They chose to be museum keepers instead of heroes. Jake knelt down in front of Kira and took her hands. I need you to help me. I can't do this alone. Help you do what? Take control of this ship. Use their communication system to contact human resistance groups. Give them the military codes I got from the general. Turn the Zelhari's own technology against them. Kira looked at the weapons on her table. We'll be killing people who raised me, people who cared for me. They never cared for you, Kira. You were a pet to them, a living doll they could dress up and show to visitors. They stole your childhood and your freedom and made you grateful. For it, the alarms kept ringing. Jake could hear security teams running through the hallways outside. Jake and Kira moved through the ship like hunters. The alarms were still ringing, but the security teams were looking in the wrong places. They thought enemies had come from outside. They never thought the enemies were already inside. We need to reach the communication center first, Jake told Kira as they crawled through a maintenance tunnel. I damaged it earlier, but I can fix it. We need to send a message to every human resistance group in the galaxy. How do you know where they are? General Throckter told me everything before he died. Planet locations, communication codes, guard, schedules, everything we need to start a war. They reached the communication center through a vent in the ceiling. Jake dropped down first and checked for guards. The room was empty except for one technician trying to fix the damaged equipment. Jake grabbed the technician from behind and knocked him unconscious. Then he went to work repairing the systems he had broken earlier. Can you access the cultural database from here? Jake asked Kira. Yes, why? I want copies of every piece of human history they have stored. Every song, every book, every piece of art. We're going to need our culture when we rebuild. Kira's fingers moved quickly over the control panels.
Ow.
Data streams flowed across multiple screens. It will take a few minutes to copy everything. Jake finished repairing the communication array and began sending signals across the galaxy. He used the Korthok military codes to reach resistance groups on slave worlds. This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force, he spoke into the transmitter. I am broadcasting on Korthok emergency frequencies. All human resistance leaders respond immediately. The first response came from Kepler 44 to B, the mining world where General Throckter had found the hidden family. Morrison, this is Captain Ben Davis. We thought all the military was dead. Where are you? I'm on a Zelhari preservation ship called Compassionate Dawn. I have intelligence on Korthok operations across 237 worlds. More voices joined the conversation. Resistance leaders from 15 different planets. Some groups had only a few dozen members. Others had hundreds. All of them had been fighting alone, thinking they were the only ones left. Listen carefully, Jake said. The Zelhari are not our friends. They work with the Korthok. They help improve slave operations in exchange for cultural artifacts. They could have freed us years ago, but chose not to. Angry voices filled the channel. These people had heard stories about the peaceful Zelhari who preserved dying cultures. Many had hoped the Zelhari might help them someday. I'm going to transmit Korthok military codes and operational data, Jake continued. Guard schedules, supply routes, communication frequencies. Use this information to coordinate attacks on slave facilities. Jake uploaded everything he had learned from General Throckter. Hundreds of files containing military secrets that the Korthok had never expected to lose. Done, Kira said. I've copied the entire cultural database. 50,000 years of human history and art. Jake nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor and room on the Compassionate Dawn. Attention all Zelhari crew members. This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison. I am taking control of this ship. Report to the main cargo bay immediately, or face the consequences. Captain Morden's voice came over the speakers seconds later. Human Jake, what are you doing? We saved you. What? We gave you a home. You gave me a cage, Jake replied. You could have saved my wife and daughter, but you chose to collect their belongings instead. You could have freed millions of humans, but you chose to help their masters treat them better. You are not saviors. You are collaborators. Jake turned off the communication system and looked at Kira. Are you ready for this? She checked her weapon and nodded. Let's finish it. They left the communication center and headed for the main cargo bay. Jake had chosen this location because it was large and had only 2 entrances. Easy to control, the cargo bay was filled with boxes and crates containing artifacts from dead civilizations. Paintings from destroyed worlds hung on the walls. Sculptures from extinct species stood on pedestals. Jake and Kira positioned themselves behind cover and waited.
Ow.
Soon they heard footsteps in the corridors outside. The Zelhari crew was coming. Captain Morden entered first, followed by Dr. Vexstar and most of the senior officers. They looked confused and frightened. Behind them came Security Chief Zareth and her guards carrying stun weapons. God, please, Dr. Vexstar called out. You are sick. The trauma has damaged your mind. Let us help you. Shh. Jake stepped out from behind a crate, his plasma rifle aimed at the group. Kira appeared on the other side of the room with her weapon ready. Help me. Jake laughed. You've been helping the Korthok for years. Do you know what they do to human children on the factory? worlds. They separate them from their parents at age 5 and train them to work 18-hour shifts. Captain Morden raised his hands. We did not know the details of their operations. We only provided medical assistance. You knew exactly what you were doing. You have records of every slave world. You have reports on working conditions. You chose to improve those conditions just enough to keep humans alive and productive. Jake pulled out General Thructer's communication device and played. One of the recordings, the general's voice filled the cargo bay, describing breeding programs for human slaves and punishment techniques for rebels. The Zelhari medical teams helped design those punishment methods, Jake continued. Your preservation techniques were used to keep humans conscious during torture. Your healing technology was used to make sure slaves could work even when injured. The Zelhari officers looked at each other with growing horror. Some of them had not known the full extent of their collaboration. We thought we were preventing suffering, Engineer Kellex whispered. You were enabling it, Kira said. Her voice was cold with anger. You raised me to be grateful for scraps while millions of my people lived in chains. You made me think I was lucky to be a pet in your museum. Security Chief Zeroth stepped forward with her stun weapon raised. Enough. You will surrender now, or we will stop you. Jake shot her before she could fire. The plasma beam turned her to ash in seconds. The other guards dropped their weapons and backed away. Anyone else want to try? Jake asked. No one moved. Good, now you're going to help me send a message too. Every species in the galaxy, Jake forced Dr. Vexstar to activate the ship's long-range transmitters. These could reach thousands of worlds across multiple star systems. This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Resistance. Jake spoke into the transmitter. I am broadcasting from the Zelhari ship, Compassionate Dawn. For those who don't know, humans are not extinct. We are enslaved by the Korthok Empire with the willing assistance of the Zelhari Preservation Council. Jake uploaded files proving the collaboration between the two species. Financial records, communication logs, medical reports showing how Zelhari technology was used to improve slave operations. The Zelhari have been lying to the galaxy for decades. They are not peaceful preservationists. They are profiteers who help maintain slavery in exchange for cultural artifacts. They watch species die so they can collect souvenirs. Jake paused and looked at the terrified Zelhari officers. But humans are not extinct. We are not gone. We are angry. We are coming for everyone who helped destroy our freedom. Turned. Back to the transmitter. To all human resistance groups, use the codes and intelligence I've provided. Hit the Korthok hard and fast. Take their supply ships. Free the slave colonies. Show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate human determination. Jake ended the transmission and turned to Captain Morden. You have escape pods on this ship. Yes, get your crew to the pods. Leave this ship. Tell the Zelhari Council that their cultural preservation program is over. What are you going to do? Jake smiled. I'm going to turn your museum into a warship. The Compassionate Dawn is now the Terra's vengeance. We're going to visit every Korthok slave world in this sector. The Zelhari crew filed out of the cargo bay toward the escape pods. Some of them looked relieved to be alive. Others looked ashamed of what they had learned about their own people. Dr. Vexstar was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at Jake. You are making a mistake, the doctor said. Violence will only create more violence. The cycle will never end. The cycle already started when you decided to help slavers instead of fighting them, Jake replied. I'm just finishing what you should have done years ago. Dr. Vexstar left without another word. Jake and Kira stood alone in the cargo bay, surrounded by artifacts from dead civilizations. But they were not dead. They were the beginning of something new. What now? Kira asked. Jake walked to a control. Panel N began entering commands. The ship's systems responded to his touch. Engines powered up. Weapons came online. Navigation charts appeared on the main screen. Now we go to war, Jake said. We visit every slave world in this sector. We give the resistance groups weapons and technology. We turn millions of slaves into an army. Jake pulled up a star chart showing Korthok territory. Red dots marked the locations of slave worlds. Blue dots showed Zelhari preservation ships. The Korthok thought they had beaten humanity. The Zelhari thought they had preserved us. They were both wrong.